Hello and welcome to Integral Centering. I'm your host, Robert Strohmeyer, and with me today is Dr. Angel Morgan. Dr. Morgan is a professor of transpersonal psychology and director of dream studies at Sophia University, the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. She's a past president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and her research focuses on the intersection of dreams and creativity, including the effects of lucid dreaming and meditation on phenomena like telepathy and shared dreaming. She's also an award winning author, filmmaker, and founder of the Dream Bridge, which you can find at thedreambridge.com. Dr. Morgan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Bob. It's wonderful to be here.
I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation for our viewers because I've come to appreciate the depth of importance of really understanding our dream lives. And I'm so grateful for you coming on today because I think there's a real opportunity for everyone out there to more deeply understand the role of dreams in their lives. We explore pathways to wholeness and integration, and dreams constitute a big part of our lives, and for many of us, an unexplored part of our lives. How did you first take an interest in dreaming as a study?
So, thank you. My interest in dreams started as a young child because my father is a psychologist and I was having nightmares as a young child. And actually, this is a big part of my work, addressing the developmental nightmares that children have that are actually normal and that aren't taught in schools or taught to parents. So most people aren't aware that there are these developmental nightmares that happen. But my father had been studying the work of Kilton Stewart, and so he taught me how to become lucid in my dream, how to call upon him. Actually, it wasn't him, how to call upon a friendly giant to help me in my dream, but I imagined him. So as a very young child, I was dream working around between the age of 4 and 5. I got started with Dreamwork. So for me, talking about my dreams, my father created a safe environment for that. And I felt very comfortable talking with him about my dreams. So it was just normal for me. It was the way that life was. And you don't hear about this very often, but occasionally you do hear about people who were raised that way, where their family talked about dreams. But in Western societies, it's very rare. And that's a big part of my work. And then let's see, when I was a teenager, my nightmares came back in a different way, right? So it was nightmares 2.0. And at that point, I had a dream teacher who was an extended family member, Eduardo Duran, PhD, who's Apache Pueblo shaman and also a Jungian psychotherapist and Tibetan Buddhist, and just this incredible teacher who helped me through that initiation stage of my teenage years with dreams and dream work. And then when I was 19, my father connected me with the widow of Kilton Stewart. So it was a full circle moment to meet my new mentor, Clara Stewart Flagg, who apprenticed me essentially in Sonoy Dreamwork for 5 years, and until, she passed away. But I had been studying with her dream group that had been together for 15 years. And I was the youngest member at that time while I was an undergrad at UCLA. And I went to those dream groups and learned so much. So then after the way, I started facilitating my own dream circles, Sonoy-inspired dream circles in California, Northern California, and Southern Oregon. In the process of that, I was a Waldorf teacher for a while with my young children, and then Stanley Krippner, I went to study with him at Saybrook to get my PhD in dream psychology, and consciousness and spirituality was my concentration, and dreams and creativity was my very specific focus for my dissertation. And I made a documentary film about that in the process of making my dissertation. So I've been really deep into this. Stanley Krippner is the one who suggested I join the IASD, the International Association for the Study of Dreams. And I did. I went to their conferences, became a member, and then in 2019 to 2021, during the pandemic, I was the president of IASD. So it's kind of been a lot of synchronicities, a lot of full circle moments, a lot of finding my destiny on the path of dream working through working with my own dreams.
Why, for everyone out there, why are dreams important to not just as a source of psychological study,
Right.
but you've talked about there being a kind of desensitization in modern society to dreams, and I think that very fact calls for some explanation, right? Why should people be paying attention to their dreams?
Absolutely. Yes, people don't pay attention to their dreams because they don't know why. You're exactly right. They don't know why it's important. And you, well, you've been in my courses, so you know, but there are a lot of people who come to take my courses in dream studies. And when they come in, they're thinking, this will just be a fun course, or this will just be fluff, or oh, maybe I'll learn a few things about dreams. And then they're halfway through the course, or even a couple of weeks into the course, and they're like, wait a minute, why is my whole life changing? Why am I getting to know myself and my true, authentic feelings better? Why am I integrating parts of myself that have felt alienated? Why do I feel more whole? Why do I feel more connected to community? Why do I feel safe with these other people while we're sharing dreams? Why do I feel inspired for my creative life or for my business life? Why am I noticing more synchronicities? So there are so many reasons. So mental health, spiritual health, physical, emotional health, all those reasons are reasons why we're not taught that. Well, Indigenous societies, many, many Indigenous societies, not just the Sonoy Temyar, who I was taught using that model. But since then, there have been many more anthropological studies, and Stanley Krippner and Barbara Tedlock. There have been a lot of people who've done research on this, and there are so many Indigenous societies that integrate Dreamwork into their daily life. The way that that benefits individuals and communities and societies, it is in the there is literature out there about that, but it's just not taught in Western societies in our schools. So that's why I created Dreambridge as an organization to educate parents of young children, expecting parents even, and start really early on, and then work with every age group of children and adults, your inner child. Okay, so working with inner children, but really going back, because anyone who didn't learn about dream work as a child, you can still work on those dreams you had as a child. You can still, those dreams are ready for you to work with and keep building from there. So anyway, it is important, but we're lacking the dream education is kind of the summary of it.
Yeah, well, it also seems that you mentioned that inner child, right? And there is, I think, in the culture of productivity driven, serious adults, a sense that, dreams are a distraction, right? We have language, common language in life, right? That kind of denigrates dreams. And people often kind of ironically or sarcastically talk about chasing their dreams,
Yes,
right?
right. It's just,
Um, I yeah, and I work, I'm thinking of a client I worked with about a year or so ago in a workshop who was very serious, very successful, very senior executive who was going through some significant life transitions. And so I was working with her to help her navigate some important life decisions, adjusting to a new phase of life. And we include dream journaling in our program in integral centering. And you could see her very quickly start to roll her eyes at the idea of dream journaling in the very beginning. But 6 weeks along, she was the first to chime in discussions about profound realizations and insights coming out of her dream life. And it was very clearly connecting her to a current of salience in these life decisions and transitions that she was going through. So it was remarkable to just kind of watch somebody go over a progression of weeks from patiently tolerating the presence of dream work in a program to absolutely thriving in it.
yeah,
It's remarkable, but I think people need to experience that for themselves in
right.
order to really directly know why it matters.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes I give examples for people like that. I get, I have had all kinds of from the business world, Silicon Valley, et cetera. And, Larry Page dreamed Google, right? I just,
That seems to be going okay.
it seems to be going okay. Whenever you have a list of examples of, and there's so many examples in every creative field and domain of dreamed creativity, right? So it's just amazing. And so I give examples of that. But in addition to that, what you're saying is so true that it's like what I was saying about students who come to my courses and they're like, oh, we'll see, who knows? She seems nice. I'll take her class or whatever. And then we dive into the material And it's life changing. It really is. So I agree with you. I think one of the first steps is committing m a certain degree, like deciding what you're willing to commit to, I if I'm going to keep a dream journal, am I going to write in it every night or every morning? Am I once a week, twice a week? What's your goal, right? Stefan Kaplan-Williams, one of the founders of ISD, he had a few books that I think maybe you and I have discussed, the Jungian Sonoy Dream Manual and Dreamworking and all that. But I think it was in Dreamworking, he had this contract that he had written up. And I remember reading that as a teenager, reading that in his book. And it said, I commit to, this many days and I'm going to do that. And you sign it and you put it up on the wall. And I thought that was clever. But it's true, just deciding what you wanna do. However, once you do start writing your dreams down, you start remembering them more. So people who say, "Oh, I don't dream." Well, of course, we know they do dream, they're just not remembering their dreams, and we're not taught that it's important, so why do you even want to remember your dreams? So you wake up, this loud alarm, you jolt out of bed, your brain chemistry shifts from the back to the front, you're in your prefrontal cortex, and all of a sudden, you don't remember any of that stuff. So, you know, how do you remember them? Well, get a more gentle alarm, something a little softer. Maybe don't jolt out of bed. Maybe just gently roll to the side and write your dream down or talk it into your phone very gently. Or even just write down in the middle of the night. People wake up in the middle of the night sometimes if they've had a big glass of water before they go to sleep sometimes. And you'll remember a dream, but then you go back to sleep and you forget it. So if in the middle of the night you write down a few words, like big blue fuzzy dog. Yeah. And then in the morning you go, "Oh yes, I dreamed about, there was a moonlight and no big window." And so the dream will come back to you if you just write down a few words for yourself to remember it. And then sometimes it goes to the other end of the scale where people say, "I'm remembering too many dreams. I don't, it's too much." And for that, I say, just stop writing them down for a little while and then go back to what you've already written and work with those. Because probably if it feels like it's too much, it means the dreams you've already recorded want some attention, some dream work.
Let's talk a little bit about what dream work is. I think that it can come across as a kind of an esoteric term. And I think many people wonder about the level of expertise required in order to do it. People get kind of reliant on official external explanations of dream symbolism. There's all kinds of online dream symbolism guides, but
Yeah,
we've discussed before right, the importance of direct personal meaning. So, how does somebody who has no experience in dream work get started unpacking the meaning of their dreams?
that is a really great question. Well, a couple of things come to mind. One is the ethical dream work, the code of ethical dream work from the ISD, which was written in 1997. It's the gold standard worldwide for dream workers and psychologists, and counselors, etc., who are doing dream work. And one of the things that is stated in that ethical statement is that the dreamer has the final say always of what their dream means. And external sources or telling somebody what their dream means can be harmful. Now, I mean, in some cultures, they have a dream shaman or something, and they go to them, and in those cases, maybe it's not harmful. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's something that, they're used to working that way. So that's why it's phrased, it can be harmful. But in most modern Western societies, if you tell somebody, "Oh, you dreamed that, that means you must be feeling insecure," or something like that, that can be very harmful, right? And it can be inaccurate. So there are, in my dream practicum course that I teach at Sophia University in the Dream Studies program, which you've taken, there are a lot of different methods that I teach. There are about 7 methods that we cover over 10 weeks, and all of them adhere to that. So they're different approaches, different techniques to working with your dreams, but they all honor the dreamer's perspective and having ethical dream work. This is in the ISD statement too. Ethical dream work helps the dreamer find the meaning through working with their dream in various ways. So you could work with the same dream in many different ways. You could use 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or all 7 of those approaches in the practicum and find different meanings. For example, you could draw your dream. You draw or paint your dream or dance your dream or write a song from your dream, and you will get something from that experience where you find a deeper meaning of that. And then you could do something like the dream interview method, Gail Delaney's dream interview method, where you interview yourself. Or you do this with another person and you practice where the interviewer says, I'm an alien from another planet, which is always very fun. But I'm an alien from another planet. Could you please tell me, you had a dream about a cat. Could you please tell me, what is a cat? I'm not from Earth. What is it? And then the dreamer just unpacks essentially each symbol in that way by describing it to the alien as if you would describe it to someone not from Earth. So, a cat is a very cuddly, warm, affectionate animal, and they're very adorable and loving, and they purr a lot. Oh, okay. So you dreamed about something, etc. So there are ways of teasing out the meaning and then what in your life is like that. Whereas if the same interviewer interviewed someone else about a dream about a cat, they might say, well, what is a cat? A cat is a scrawny, smelly, stinky creature that is always hungry and scratches the furniture, destroys the curtains, etc. So everyone has their own dream. And so learning your own language is something that I work with people to do to help them. And that's what most dream workers do if they're doing ethical dream work, is trying to help the dreamer find their own dream language, essentially.
You brought up, doing this work sometimes with somebody else, being able to actually try the dream interview method, which I just absolutely think it's a brilliant approach. My experience of doing that, of actually having to answer the question like, well, what is a shoe? And you come up with these and you try to be literal maybe, but there's you come up with something in the moment, right? That ends up being informed by the meaning of the dream because you're in the context of exploring the dream. Quite often you fail to come up with a good textbook definition of whatever the thing is, but that,
Good.
it becomes clear, right? It becomes clear, in many ways what it is that it means to you.
Yes, subjectively to you, exactly what you
Yeah.
said. Because if you got a textbook definition, that's like, and this is my other point I wanted to make, that's like going to a dream dictionary. And
Yeah.
dream dictionaries are generally frowned upon by the ISD. There are very rarely you'll find a good one. The only good ones, well, let me put it this way. You can use dream dictionaries as a tool if you know that it's not conclusive. If you know, like, for example, I'm going to look at Jung's symbols. What does Jung say about symbols? What does Jung say about ocean? Oh, it's, the collective unconscious, or it's your emotions. Oh, well, for me, water in dreams is mother, because I was in the womb. My first water in this life was in my mother. So for me, dreams about water is connected to my mother or my motherhood. But you're not going to see that. You might see that somewhere in a dream dictionary, but I haven't seen it. But anyway, usually the good ones, or the ones that are good to use as tools, will usually give 3 or 4 options per symbol. So you can say, it might say, oh, if you are drinking tea in a dream. Oh, look, here's the 2 cats. You're drinking tea.
Both versions, right?
Both versions, exactly. But if you're drinking tea in a dream, it could mean that what's your experience in the dream? Is it a good experience, or are you feeling sick from drinking the tea? Is your dream, Ed Kellogg has come up with what he calls a dreamitarian diet. So you're informed by your dreams what to eat and what not to eat. So maybe if my dream is telling me, oh, I should drink more tea, less tea, herbal, caffeine, etc. So pay attention to how you're feeling in the dream, and what the experience is with the exact thing. But if there's a definition in a dream dictionary and it says, if you drink tea, and you'll find this in some cultures actually, there are some traditional, like in Korea and China, for example, there are specific books that are very classic and connected to the culture, where it'll say, if you're drinking tea, it means a very specific thing. So if it's culturally accepted, and I teach students in China as well through Sophia University, so I've got hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of students in China, and when they bring up these texts, and I encourage them to say, well, if that feels correct for you, then it's correct for you. But if it doesn't, you don't have to attach yourself to that definition. If you have something else coming up, explore that.
Yeah. It's so important to actually directly explore. I see this a lot with I have a teenage daughter and she's a creative and, she's well aware that I study this stuff. So she will come to me, especially because she's a writer and she's working on a show and so she'll be working on an element and looking for some symbolism to weave in. And she'll come to me and go like, what does a cat mean? For example, right? Or, and so, we'll have these conversations, even outside the context of dreams, just kind of talking about,
Did you say I'm an alien from another planet?
so I've had this, but she's very nice. But right, trying to really ensure that, we don't kind of rely on some canonical outside source of meaning
Right.
in our lives, as much as we might put stock in Jung's ideas, as much as we might honor the concept of a collective unconscious in which all of these meanings kind of dwell at an archetypal level, your personal context, your embodied, enacted, real, emotionally informed context is so much more reliable in
Yes.
many ways.
And at the beginning of my dream practicum, you remember one of the things we, one of the first, actually, the first two methods we look at are somatic and gestalt. So the somatic is informed by, where do you feel the emotion from the dream in your body, et cetera. So it really is internal. And the gestalt is also very internal. So we start right with the individual and then move to the group dream work later. But with gestalt, earlier you were talking about how with this work that you're doing here with your podcast, you're focused on integration and wholeness. And how can dream work help with that, right? So, I mean, gestalt is another example, a very powerful example of that because the dreamer, re-enters the dream and plays, essentially speaks through and embodies each of the dream elements and moves their consciousness, from the bird's eye view to the ocean or the sun or the trees or whatever it is, and then speaks as those elements because Fritz Perls said that, you know, Gestalt dream work, um, it helps integrate alienated parts of yourself and you become more whole through doing this. And so that's the experience that students have when they do this dream work. Very powerful.
So you've talked about a couple of approaches, right? Just dream work, the dream interview method. What do you recommend for somebody who's just, on their own,
Yeah.
beginning to explore their dream life? We've talked a little bit about the importance of actually journaling, right? Keeping track of your dreams, trying to, capture them when you wake up,
Yes.
which can help to increase dream recall.
Yes.
What's a method once you have a dream captured on paper somehow, right? What do you do with it? How can somebody with no experience
Yeah.
get
Yes.
started?
There are many different methods, as we've discussed already, and some are more complex than others. They have more steps, and you want to maybe take a class or go to the dreambridge.com and take a look because I do offer consultations and things like that for people. However, if you're not looking for that, kind of mentorship and you're at home, one of the best things you can do is find somebody else in your family, a partner or a child, maybe your teenage daughter, somebody. Find somebody, or the whole family is even better. Read my book, Dreamer's Powerful Tiger. The whole family talks about it at breakfast every morning. But anyway, finding at least one person in your family or in your sphere of friends, find a buddy, somebody you can share your dreams with, and they will share their dreams with you. So dream sharing as a healing method. I've written about this a lot in journals and in the Huffington Post, wherever, just sharing dreams. It's underrated. But we want to normalize it because it's not like they're talking about dreams, that their dreams are so weird. Why are dreams weird? Because we don't understand them. It's just we haven't been educated about them. But once you realize they speak in a language of symbols and puns and metaphors, then you can start sharing your dreams playfully And also, of course, compassionately. It builds compassion and empathy, sympathy, self esteem, a sense of trust, a sense of community. All these things are built by sharing dreams with somebody who's willing to listen to your dream and you are willing to listen to their dream. So it builds, it deepens your relationship. So when you share dreams, like with your children, if you have children also or grandchildren, if you say, "Hey, did you have a dream last night?" And then they share the dream, you could say, "Well, that was a really good dream." No matter what, no matter what, if it was a nightmare, if it was something that maybe scares you a little bit, just remember it's good because all dreams come in the service of healing, health, wholeness, all of them. It's just, it might take some time to understand why it came to you or what the meaning is. It's not a simple, cut and dried, here's the answer, Bob. This is what you do. What it is, it's a relationship. You say, I am willing to have a relationship with my dreams, and I'm willing to honor that dreams are important in my life and that they have information for me that I don't already have because they don't tell you what you already know. They always have a gift to help propel you forward to the next stage of whatever it is that's happening.
I think it's really great that you talked about that sense of weirdness, right? That sense that so many of us have that dreams are weird. Dreams are weird, right? And this is a hill I will die on. I think weird is good.
Ew.
And there's a sacred history behind the word weird, right? And its meaning across Western culture, right? Weirding refers to entering this liminal state of connected awareness. And weirdness is connection with that deeper unconscious or liminally conscious self and the insights that come from it. So I think it's so valuable that you actually just acknowledge that right out, right? That yes, your dreams are likely to be weird and weird is informative.
Exactly. It's a whole other world. So the way I was taught to look at this in amongst my various dream teachers growing up, right? Is that there's, the waking world and there's the dream world. And this, initially I learned about this based on the Sonoy Temeyar view, and if you just look at that infinity symbol, which is in my Dream Bridge logo as well, weaving from waking to dreaming. And it's a continuum of consciousness. When you build lucid dreaming into your life and you become aware, you can move back and forth more consciously, more aware, with more awareness. So anyway, these are two different worlds. And so learning what is the same and what is different about these two worlds, it's a whole journey. And this is part of dream education and dream arts education, and children learn it. Children love it. Okay. It comes naturally to them because these are the laws of the universe. It's just natural. It exists. It's there. So it's mysterious to us if we haven't learned it or if we haven't explored it. But once you start exploring it, you realize, okay, yeah, it's really important to know that I can fly in my dream, but I can't fly in waking life. There are things that you need to learn. Yeah. And how, after I fly somewhere in my dream and I land and I feel the earth beneath my bare feet and I feel very grounded and I look around, I was taught to do that. I was taught to ground after I fly so that I'm not just waking up and I'm all like, ooh, I have a grounded feeling so that when I wake up, I'm more grounded and I'm more connected to my earthly waking journey and what it is I'm here to do.
People then take these insights at any age, right? For parents helping their children to connect with their dreams,
Mhm.
which it's such an also just I want to add that is such an important way potentially to break hereditary cycles,
Yes.
right? If you grew up in a family that did not care about or honor or respect dream life, teaching your children to recognize the importance of their dreams helps them to also recognize the importance of their inner lives and their inner selves, which too often children are taught to suppress and mask. So I just want to echo
Yes,
the
yes, yes. Thank you. This is a huge part of my life's work, actually. And there was a story that Kilton Stewart used to teach in the 19, he lived with the Sonoy Temeyar in the 1930s and then was teaching Sonoy inspired dream work in the 1950s in New York and London. And later, he actually was the source of a lot of grassroots dream work that exists internationally today. So one of the stories that Clara Stewart Flagg used to tell and her wife, her husband, Alan Flagg at the time, was this, story about that Kilton Stewart used to tell. So it was like from Kilton to Clara to me about the story of the boy who is dreaming about being chased by a tiger. Well, your question was, how can people with their families get started? And yes, so I ended up publishing a book with the story that I called Dreamer's Powerful Tiger. And I had told that story for 20 years. Thank
And we have a copy right here. And I just want to endorse this is actually, I mean, it's a great book for working with children, but also it's a great, I mean, for your inner child to be able to really kind of contextualize the role dream insight plays for us. It's so valuable. Anyway,
Thank you.
please continue.
Thank you so much. Yes. So there's also the book is a great place to start. And of course, it's in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, audiobook. There's an audiobook that I recorded in Paris with my dear friend Dana Boulay. She's a composer and she composed an all original soundtrack, musical soundtrack for the audiobook. So I'm currently working on a project. I've got a short film now that I'm going to be showing at IASD this summer and later at other conferences and so on, festivals. So it's short film and it's essentially the images in the book with the soundtrack all together. So there's a film coming out. However, at this time, what is available to everybody, and eventually the film will be available. You can see about it on my website. There will be links. But right now, the book, the audiobook are a really great place to start if you've never learned about dream work as a child, as you just said, Bob, because, I use that book. And the reason Bob has this book is because I teach it, I use it as a textbook for my graduate students as well at Sophia University in the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. So it's one of those books that is for all ages, starting around 4 or 5 years old. Anyone younger than that, they're just going to look at the pictures and maybe it'll go in, but they won't really get it until they're about 4 or 5. That's when they'll start asking questions and say, that's scary, or, okay, hold on, let's turn the page together. It gets better.
So you brought up, the ooh, that's scary, right? And you treat the, frightening or nightmare material in the book as well for children, but for adults also,
Yes.
nightmares can be deeply traumatic. They can resurface lived trauma. For anybody delving into this work, it's very likely that at some point some frightening or uncomfortable material is going to surface. What's your advice to someone to prepare them for that?
I love that question because, and I write about this in the book, there's a note to parents at the beginning. And this is, for all adults. The note is for all adults, whether you're a parent or not. What happens is there's a normal developmental nightmare that all children have eventually. And it has to do with being chased by something. Usually it's an animal. It could be a troll or a witch or a faceless being, or it could be a wolf or a tiger or, something. But there's some kind of animal. Could be a very large cat. Somebody told me their child was dreaming about a very large cat. And I was thinking, tiger, very large cat. But anyway, there's this archetypal dream. It's something that it's a developmental dream that children have. I see nightmare as opportunities. So this developmental, why? There's a reason why children would have this dream. And it's not for parents to say, go back to sleep. It's nothing. You didn't dream. Yeah, it's harmless because children know that it was something. And so when parents say it's nothing, they learn to not trust their parents. So if you really want to build your relationship with your child or your grandchildren, honor that they had a scary experience. Let's talk about it. Tell me about it. Tell me about your dream. Okay, so there's this opportunity, and the book talks about how you can face that opportunity when it happens for children. Now, if that doesn't happen, what happens is the developmental nightmare continues, but it changes form for adults. So adults will keep having nightmares. Maybe it's about anxiety from work or something, or maybe it's about, that test they had to take in high school or whatever. But it's, if you haven't worked on the capacity of courage, building the courage to face things when they're challenging or difficult in your dream, then it's difficult to face it in waking life, because what happens in waking life affects the dream world, and what happens in the dream world affects the waking life. That's in the book too. The grandmother says it. So yes, it's something that I feel that at this time, at this point in the world, more adults, I think, could benefit from going back to their inner child and doing this work. And even if they don't remember a nightmare from childhood, what nightmares are you having now? you can apply the same wisdom that's in Dreamer's Powerful Tiger to what's happening in an adult nightmare. Some scary person is chasing you in an alley. They've got a gun or an axe or something, or it's a witch. I saw some comedy show, I forget who it was, but he was, like, asking people to share their dreams in the audience, and this woman, she said, "Oh, I always have this recurring nightmare of this witch who chases me," and I was thinking, "Oh, I wish I was there. I'd turn around, look at her, ask her why she's there. She'd probably turn into some benign, I don't know, I'm you, or I'm that thing that you never forgave, or I'm your friend or your sister. There's some wisdom there that your dream is wanting to give you. And if we keep running, that's what the nightmare is about. That's where the fear is. The fear comes from the unknown, right? So how do you transform fear into love? It's about integration. It's about facing the fears. It's about finding allies, finding, who can help you in your dream, who can help you in waking life. And then another favorite message from the book is about being number one in the dream. Like, if you are number one in your dream and all your needs are met in your dream, no, you're not a narcissist. No, you're not just complete egomaniac. It means you're taking care of yourself. You're having that self-care in your dream world. You're not hurting anyone in your dream. You're just making sure that everyone's happy, including yourself. So you do that kind of a dream work, and then in your waking life, you're free to be selfless, generous, kind, compassionate. You have more energy to give to others in your community because you've taken care of yourself, like the mask in the airplane. Take care of yourself first. So, yeah, there are a lot of lessons in that book that I think the world is not just ready for, but in need of at this time, which is why the other reason I'm turning it into a film.
I'm very much looking forward to that. And the IASD conference is in June, so I imagine the film will be ready by then.
It will be shown there. Yes.
And then perhaps available by streaming after that. We'll have to have you come back and tell us how we can see the film. And I want to really re-emphasize the dreambridge.com is also a fantastic resource for getting started in working with your dreams, and some fantastic resources for parents. But I can't emphasize enough that this is not only for actual current, temporarily real children, but also for our whole selves, which includes the child in you. And it is so important to honor that child. Dr. Morgan, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today. I hope we'll have an opportunity to have you on again.
Thank you. That would be my pleasure. Thanks, Bob.